Peace and blessings, people. This is Grand Kush. Welcome to the Grand Kush channel, where we deal with Nu-Age Science and anything dealing with Eu-Melaninite culture. Thanks for stopping in and viewing. If you're new to the channels, please like and subscribe. And all the returning viewers that's peeping out the channel but ain't showing the God the love, go ahead and subscribe. It's all right, man. You're not going to do nothing but get some good, wholesome, righteous, positive information. All right, let's go in. The topic I'm dealing with today, all right, for 9 scientists and 9 mentalists out there dealing with 9 knowledge. Is Afroo Oonoo really Amunnubi RaKahPtah? Is Afroo Oonoo really Amunnubi RaKahPtah? And did he write the Bible interpretations and explanations? Okay. This information is definitely for those who are haters of Dr. Malachi Z. York and say that Dr. Malachi Z. York stole information from Afroo Oonoo. All right, before we dig in, we want to check the first date on a book written by Afroo Oonoo, which is the Introductions to the Nature of Nature. We want to check the date. All right, we're going to peep the date. And the date says, as you can see, 1993. 1993, Introductions to the Nature of Nature. Afroo Oonoo. Does it say this is book 1? All right. First publication, 1993. Introduction, book 1. All right. And so before I break down this information right here, okay, there are those who say that Dr. Malachi Z. York stole information from Afroo Oonoo, was a student in Afroo Oonoo, or throwing anything out there to try to explain their hypothesis that Afroo Oonoo is the writer of the BIAE. Okay. So we got that 1993, book 1. So what I want to do and what I'm going to break down in the BIAE, the Bible Interpretations and Explanations, written by Amunnubi RaKahPtah, who some think is Afroo Oonoo, we're going to break down a segment, the last chapter of the book, and it starts with a question: what is Nuwaupu? Now, for many of us, you probably didn't hear about Nuwaupu except by way of Dr. Malachi Z. York. All right. I didn't start dealing with Nuwaupu until 1991. Afroo Oonoo was not heard of at all. In fact, there are some, even the haters today, who stated that Dr. Malachi Z. York was Afroo Oonoo and he wrote everything, right? Well, some of us don't go back that far in dealing with or hearing the term Nuwaupu when the term was first used, okay, officially used, and that's in Bible Interpretations and Explanations. All right. So peep game, people, I'm going to show you how Afroo Oonoo is not Amunnubi RaKahPtah. All right. 1967. Almost 30 years prior, we hear of the term Nuwaupu given by way of Amunnubi RaKahPtah. All right. Now, here's the question. Here is the question. Here is the major terminator, detonator, and denominator when it comes down to understanding who these men were. By way of default and usage of the term, we have to say Amunnubi RaKahPtah is Dr. Malachi Z. York. But here is the question for you. If Afroo Oonoo is Amunnubi RaKahPtah, that means that he wrote this book in the 60s. If he was sent by way of NoopooH and the positive forces of nature to teach, okay, then why did he discontinue writing and teaching? And you can find that in the breakdown of his life and his obituary, okay, in which the necromantics are using to display their worshiping tactics and practices of Afroo Oonoo. Why did he stop writing and teaching if he wrote this book? Okay, he couldn't have wrote this book, and I'm going to show you why. Okay. First of all, why the name change? Amunnubi RaKahPtah is actually a dope name, all right? The only person that I know that used it was Dr. Malachi Z. York. But why the name change from Amunnubi RaKahPtah to Afroo Oonoo? Okay, so I want to go down to the bottom because we're going to get into Nuwaupu. This book is religious as well. It's breaking down religion, in which Afroo Oonoo does not do in the introduction to the nature of nature. And in fact, I may even go over this book because this book is heavy. All right. Now, let's check this out. Supposedly, this is what Afroo Oonoo wrote. Supposedly. Okay. But we only know that Dr. Malachi Z. York is the one that carried out the information. Now, the introductions to the nature of nature goes into some details concerning NoopooH Science, and we will cover that too. We will cover that too. And as we cover it, you can discern yourself who is the writer of the original scrolls that had to deal with 9 knowledge, 9 wisdom, and 9 understanding. Let's read. Okay, it says, what is Nuwaupu? Right? So the first question is, what is Noone Science? And what is the purposes of Noone Science? Well, if we understand to the breakdown of Nuwaupu, we're going to understand that Noone Science is a degree of Nuwaupu. Okay? NoopooH is a degree of Nuwaupu, right? As the book says in the introduction to the nature of nature, NoopooH has to be written out in odd letters. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, right? But when NoopooH, or the pronunciation of the terms or the letters that's been put together to pronounce NoopooH, when it was first used, it was used in even lettering, N-U-P-U. That's something else to show that Afroo Oonoo isn't the writer of the BIAE. If he expounded on his science, he should have said it, or I think he would have said it, right? Why not? Maybe he was trying to be a student of Dr. York back then. He wrote this, he couldn't maintain it, whatever. I don't know. That's all speculative. Nuwaupu is pronounced Nuwaupu. You see NoopooH in the term. The meaning of the word Nuwaupu is the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Nuwaupu is all knowledge. It's not some knowledge. It's all knowledge, all wisdom, all understanding, finite and infinite. Amunnubi RaKahPtah put those two words together to let you know, okay? Everything that we dealing with is Nuwaupu, right? And then you got to understand the ethers, and you got to understand the evolutionary cycles of why we're not seeing with Nuwaupu right now, okay? Nuwaupu is the science of sciences, and the science in sciences, right? So where would Noone Science fall within this? Within, not outside, within, right? But let's continue, because this is supposedly what Afroo Oonoo wrote before he became Afroo Oonoo. He was a teacher, supposedly, or a writer or author in the 60s of Nuwaupu, which is the spiritual science that existed before the great flood of Noah, 17,250,000 years ago, and is therefore the science of the original creative forces. Now, Nupu can go with Nuwaupu, but what is the purpose of Noone Science? That sounds like a hijacker. I'm going to do my own thing. Like this zoologist named Jutar from Mars. Therefore, the science of the original creative forces and the original spiritual science of the African pygmies and Ethiopians in general. Nuwaupu is the science in which and with which the universe was grown. Nuwaupu is the science in which and with which the universe was grown. Question, Jutar. Commit Marsha. Why isn't Noone Science there? Since you're the commissioner. You guys are commissioners. You're sent from the highest degrees of intellect, yet cannot answer any questions, cannot see with the nine eye. Your eye is not open. It's been closed. Okay? It's been froze. Why isn't Noone Science placed anywhere here in the 1960s? Was Noone Science even heard of? That would mean, was Afroo Oonoo really even relevant? Nupu existed for a long time after the flood, but finally gave way to pantheism in accordance with time cycle laws of nature. In accordance with time cycle laws of nature. So what were black people doing that were following Nuwaupu, where Nuwaupu wasn't being followed anymore? How can you explain that? Well, when the colonizer came over here, we're not doing what we originally did anymore. We're doing a lot of what they told us to do, right? Just as, in accord with the time cycles of nature, pantheism eventually gave way to religion as we know it today. Now it is time for Nuwaupu again. Why? He repeated it. He said it started off, and now it's time for Nuwaupu again. Why would he make this error? Or can it be explained? Real scientists will give us the who, when, why, how, where of the origins and terminations of informations, persons, places, and things. Right? It's right here in front of the face. Now it is time for Nuwaupu again. The standard knowledge of Nuwaupu is right knowledge. Right knowledge is that knowledge which agrees with nature and its laws and its way of life and death. Right knowledge is facts without fallacy. Facts are identified by proof, logic, okay, reason, right? Reason would be nous in the Greek. Logic would be, I can't think of the term with the Z. This is Greek terms because facts are always logical and they reason out. When all necessary and major questions about the Bible have been asked by, answered for, and known to, and understood by the so-called Negro, he and she will then be qualified for his or her, and her own spiritual science, which is Nuwaupu. So Nupu is not the science, right? Nupu is the intelligent activity and reason in nine science vocabulary. The science is Nuwaupu. Nine science is Nuwaupu, right? I threw Noone Science in there for respect, but let's keep it 100. Let's keep it 99.999% all the way real. What is the purpose of Noone Science? Okay. When did Noone Science overlap Nuwaupu? Nuwaupu is the spiritual heritage of Ethiopians in general, and it helps all oppressed peoples. Oh man, I got the books. I'm gonna just change the terms. I'm gonna change the books like Jutar. Right? I don't even use the original books. I use my mock-up. So you can see it the way I see it, that we can't really see, because you can't see, you're blind. All right. Nuwaupu is the spiritual heritage of Ethiopians in general, and it helps all oppressed people. Now, people might be saying, that's not my spiritual heritage. What is? Okay. Right. This is information where you're being led from the spirit. So I might not be the greatest teacher. So I used to rock the uniform as well. I used to have all the Nuwaupian garb and all of that stuff way back in the day. You see what I'm saying? But when your spirit is led to a thing, a person, a spirit, an energy, and it's positive, then it'll show up for you, right? And so if you never heard it before, you hearing it now, and you are responsible for the information that goes into your brain matter, and you can discern what's positive and negative for you. What is Noone Science going to do? Okay. Why isn't Afroo Oonoo talking about the African Noon Kingdom in Bible interpretations and explanations? Okay. Why aren't the writers of the nine ball, if that's Repu, Sipu, and Jipu, how come they're not talking about the African Noon Kingdom? Maybe they are. I got to go and peruse through that. But I don't think they are. And various other things that's in the introduction to the nature, like the commandment laws. Okay, commandment laws, that's kind of religious. But anyway, for the sake of justice, freedom, equality, and survival, it is most important and necessary for Ethiopians to know and remember. When Caucasians say God, Jesus, Lord, Christ, or any combination of these names and titles, they mean the spirit forces that have enabled Caucasians to enslave, dominate, and exploit darker peoples. And this fact is why Caucasians, we're not going to go into this because this point was, this is more into Nuwaupu and dealing with the opposites. The camera got to stop doing that. All right, so That's Nuwaupu. That's Nuwaupu. And throughout this this scroll, I'm gonna turn my camera off because it's tripping. All right. Throughout this scroll, Nuwaupu is being talked about. Like right here, you see the original and primary powers that existed on Earth before Noah are found in Nuwaupu. These are the powers and forces of liberation for woolly-haired Ethiopians everywhere, and will enable us to succeed in nationhood called Ethiopian nationalism, where we need it, and in the united form we need it. So did Afroo Oonoo feel like the vocabulary or something needed to change? Okay, we got to understand the funk that was happening and popping off in the 60s. 30 years later in the 90s, we cracked it off. But in the 90s, the real information came, and the only information that we are going to get outside of artificial intelligence. This is organic information, ear to ear. If you can get it, scroll to scroll, book to book. You understand what I'm saying? But we're going to have to contend. The mind is going to have to contend with artificial intelligence. We knew it was coming. It's here. Let's look at Afroo Oonoo. Let's check out. Hold on. Stay right there. I think I want to hit the 9 ball. It's not coming up though. Let's go 9 ball. Let me get my other 9 ball there. Okay. All right. So let's pull up the 9 ball, right? Because it's an Afroo Oonoo thing. Boom. 9 ball. Let me click back over here right quick so you can see, because this is what they did as well. This is what the contenders did as well. So you see the star representative, also known as Ripu the Sun. This title is not in the BIAE or the 9 ball. The planet representative, also known as Jipu, the Earth, not heard of in the original books. The satellite representative, also known as Sipu, the moon, right? It's not in the original books. The original writers of the 9 ball. Okay, the original Nuwaupu, Nuwaupu, and Nuwaupu. This is another reason why they're saying that, okay, Afroo Oonoo and family members wrote these original books because he happened to keep the representatives. But in 9 ball, Nuwaupu, Nuwaupu, and Nuwaupu, there's nowhere in here where they say they represent the sun, the planet, and the satellite. All right, let's keep it moving. Now, this is written in 1971. They should be talking about Noone Science. All right, 9 reason, 9 knowledge, 9 liberation, and 9 ether. Let's go down to E. We're going to scroll with me down. We're going to get to E, and we're going to see 9E. Now I'm scrolling past some great information right here. Okay, that's 9 reason. We got to get to E. Because 9 ether is Nuwaupu, right? 9 ether is Nuwaupu in the introductions to the nature of nature. We almost there. We at D. We about to hit E. Just gonna see what it say in the 9 ball. Boom. 9 ether. Okay, 9 ether. Let's see what it say. It says 9 ether is the mental power and chemical forces that grew the universes. 9 ether is the combination of all existing gases and chemicals. Okay, all existing gases and chemicals. So what we know about all existing gases and chemicals, we got to look at this, right? Based on what's being said. We got to look at this. All existing gases and chemicals, all that together is 9 ether. Okay, let's go back. 9 ether is the original forces of order. In the form and formula of 9 ether, our Ethiopian ancestors grew the universes and then personified themselves as African pygmies at the source of the Nile in equatorial Africa. Okay, so what that's saying is we are represented in the growths of the suns and things of that nature, those energies, prime energies, positive energies at a time, okay, personified and became African pygmies at the source of the Nile in equatorial Africa. 9 ether began as a spontaneous fire in primeval chaos and grew bodies for itself called true stars or suns, one of which is the sun of our solar system. Ethiopians are personifications of the suns because our energies grew the suns. Okay, you're not going to find any other information out here like this, right? It may be hard to get comprehend or get your mind around it because it's actually putting you on a higher pedestal than society and other mankind races will do. 9 ether produce the bodies of the suns, and in turn the suns produce 9 ether. The suns are self-created, meaning self-grown and also self-existent. 9 ether is black, therefore the bodies of the suns are black, jet black. You ain't want to be that. 9 ether is the power of 9 reason, which produces the power of 9 knowledge. Okay, there is no other power or force strong enough or wise enough to mentally and physically liberate the Ethiopian from his and her grave of ignorance and prison of serfdom, but 9 ether, the Ethiopian forces in nature. 9 ether is our powers in nature and by nature. Okay, so with that, why did Afroo Oonoo turn around and give us introductions to the nature of nature? That don't sound like no introduction right there. When we Ethiopian lost our power to reason soundly, 9 ether is what we lost. Right here, Nuwaupu can be applied, but there's no reason for Noone Science. 9 ether is what we lost. When we Ethiopians lost our spirit power, 9 ether is what we lost. Why is it not saying 6 ether? You know, it's some fools out there that say we not even 9 ether beings because of what Afroo Oonoo said. But he not following the original script, the original brick, the original foundation of the 9 science outformation. 9 ether is the scientific and spirit power of Ethiopians by nature. Meaning, 9 ether is our true nature. How are we 6 ether, my boy? How are we 6 ether, people? It don't say that in the original manuscripts. Okay? If anything was stolen, it was definitely stolen from these 2 scrolls, the BIAE and the 9 ball. Right? Afroo Oonoo didn't talk about the 9 ball, get from behind the 9 ball, where these scrolls came from under the Nuwaupu umbrella, put out by A Nova Nuopooh on getfrombehindthe9ball.com somewhere in 2004. The power 9 ether helps us make Ethiopian history and restores Ethiopian culture. And this means mental liberation, and mental liberation in turn begat physical liberation. All right, so you see all of this is being attributed to Nuwaupu. Okay. Right. Now, even with the original symbols, there's no double up symbol. It's the N and the T. Hold on. Because let me get to the bottom. Now, this book is heavy too, man. This book is not for the weak-minded. This book is not for those who are scared to be black, you know, who are puppets out here, you know. They real sheep, real docile. They don't really want no change. They just want more money. They don't mind cleaning the oppressor's shoes as long as you get proper, adequate wages. You get some time off, right? The origin of the universe is the 9 ether, the combination of all existing chemicals and gases, the universal mind, the universal grower. I just want to see if Nuwaupu was in here. 9 ether. Hold on. All right, just to finish this up. So when you in a 9 ball, right, and you're dealing with 9 reason, 9 knowledge, 9 liberation, 9 ether goes in to break down, 6 ether and things of that nature, the purpose of religion. This is not dealing with Noone Science at all. This is Nuwaupu, right? And so to go back, to piggyback on what I said, what is the purpose of Noone Science? And why did Afroo Oonoo change his name from Amunnubi RaKahPtah if he really wrote these books? What is the purpose? Can we get a proper answer for that? Okay. Why is Nuwaupu spelled in even letters when he said it should be spelled in odd letters? Why did he change from Nuwaupu to Noone Science and Nuwaupu? Why did he only put his information out in the 90s? Okay. How come he is not a representative of his own works? Nobody's seen Afroo Oonoo out in the open. Okay. Sabaism is not talked about in the 9 ball. Sabaism is a phase of pantheism that's not talked about in the 9 ball or the BIAE. Sabaism is a part of the science Noon. And see, Nuwaupu is void of pantheism, period. Nuwaupu, Sabaism or pantheism is not a phase of Nuwaupu. This is why Noone Science is a part of Nuwaupu. You got to understand. Hold on. Let me see. No, hold on. Let me see if I got this scroll. I don't have that scroll. I need to get that scroll. I got the scroll, but that's all right. Let's go back. Because Afroo Oonoo said he was born in Sudan, huh? But he was born in Georgia. Okay, so here's some of the titles in book 1. Some of the titles right here. Okay. Nuwaupu was no longer being used. Why? Why did he change up? Okay. So the information that I gave these fools back in the day is correct information. All right. Because in the original scrolls, we've seen that Nuwaupu is the science. My ether is the activity. You see, like right here, Nupu is called Nous. All right. There's no relation to Greek information in the 9-ball. You see what I'm saying? The information in here is good, but it's a deviation from the original script. Okay, like here, Nupu, right? Nous is the original creator. You don't say that in the 9-ball. It says 9 ether. It has no mention of Nous. Okay? It has no mention of Nous. And so what's the reason for the change? Now, here we go. Listen to reason. The Eastern and scientific name of the writer of this book is Afroo Oonoo. Of course, Afro means pertaining to Africa, African, or of African descent. And the word and name Oonoo means number 1 or first to be resurrected again. This happens every 72 million years. From the death called ignorance. Now, there's already books on Nuwaupu out before this even hit the shelf. From the death called ignorance and deceptions about absolute nature and its laws and cycles, and the first to be resurrected from the deep grave of death cultures that do not recognize eternal nature and its laws, cycles, and reason as the one supreme being and ultimate power. Well, look, if he's the first to be resurrected, I was dealing with Nuwaupu in 1991. I didn't get his book until like 2008. So you was resurrected quietly. Okay. You didn't come out here shining like the sun, speaking on the activity and expression of Afroo Oonoo, who said he was born in Sudan, right? But actually was born in Georgia. Where did that come from? Okay. Nature knowledge comes to the nobility of the Ethiopian race. I'm with that. The Ethiopian race is the original ethnic race. It turns out in the nature of nature that the nature of the Ethiopian race occupies the position of original and primary pioneer of culture and law and order. I'm with that. But why is he giving us the introductions to the nature of nature? And it says here, the nature of nature. There's no introductions in the 9-ball. We can continue to go down. And I'm willing to debate anybody on this information. If Jutar really want to step up, okay, because he's the only one out there really pushing for some attention. He want to get this spanking. He want to get these whippings. But anybody can step up on a validity of Afroo Oonoo's works. You know, I deal with all science because it pertains to 9 science, but do I think it's credible? It's up to me to discern whether information that I take in is positive or negative. You don't have to take in everything. But in the sake of the debate and the argument and the criticism, I'm one of the greatest teachers out here dealing with 9 science. I'm not talking about regurgitation of Dr. Malachi York's information. I'm talking about actually understanding and comprehending and knowing what you're dealing with when you're expressing the affirmation. Okay. And so right here, I'm going to leave it right here because I gave enough information and questions pertaining to, is Afroo Oonoo really Amunnubi RaKahPtah? I don't think he is. For those who think he is, right? Why? And obviously you can't do a compare and contrast with these 2 books, because what cancels out the introductions to the nature of nature is the usages of Noone Science, NoopooH, and Afroo Oonoo. And the question is, why the change? Grand Kush, until next time, y'all hold it down, like and subscribe. I'll hit y'all with another one. It's always 9 reason, 9 mind, 9 life. Y'all be good. Stay great. Peace.